Phew! There are a lot of chapters about weapons, but I guess that makes sense because really, a weapon is what you're going to need to survive in the wasteland. Almost everyone, not just every pony, should carry a gun. Unless you're some kind of super powerful unicorn sorceress that can kill ponies with your mind, you're going to want something to keep the bad guys away. In other chapters, I've just talked about normal guns, melee weapons, and energy weapons, alluding to some of the more powerful versions of each. But there are some of you out there who want a little bit more power even still. So this is my guide to using really big, really neat weapons. Almost all big guns will need to be attached to some kind of battle saddle. However, if you're lucky enough to have a set of power armor, they can probably connect there too. Big guns are almost always unique in one way or another because they're almost as hard to find as energy weapons. Some of the more common ones you'll see are the ones that were assigned to a military unit during the Great War. The first one, and I should emphasize that it got the name during the war because it's called the Zebra Graveyard. What it actually is a kind of a grenade launcher. It has a special belt-fed drum that attaches to either side of the saddle, so you can launch up to 24 grenades before reloading. Most of these weapons will fall into the category of kill lots of things very quickly. There are other grenade launchers out there, but the Zebra Graveyard is by far the best one I've seen. I once saw a Steel Ranger blow a dozen raiders to pieces inside of an old house. She blew the house to pieces too. The problem with grenade launchers, though, is that you have to be smart the way you aim them. They're like throwing a hoofball. You need to arc it into the air to cover long distance. Rockets and missile launchers are better. You can aim them and the rocket or missile will keep sailing in the same direction until it explodes. There are even some missile launchers that can track targets on the ground with a heat-seeking spell or something. Most of those I've only seen from Steel Rangers though, so it might be a power armor thing. If you feel like something that has more quantity over quality, like a machine gun that shoots 1,000 bullets a minute, then you want a minigun. Now, these are really fun because they're not mini at all. Every minigun I've seen has been bigger than I am, and I'm not exactly a short little mare. If you do find yourself a minigun, you will most likely need a spark battery to help power it also. The battery will last for a long time. If one is already in there, you're probably fine. It's necessary though, because you need to start turning its 6 big barrels on the gun before it will actually start shooting. There are some versions I've seen with only 3 barrels, which are a bit lighter, but there's a difference between 50 and 45 pounds, so lighter is a bit relative. If that's still not light enough for you though, I saw a very special version a long time ago. I called it the mini gun, because not only was the gun actually smaller, but there were 2 of them. So this pony had a turning set of 6 barrels on each side of the battle saddle, and it still shot as fast and as deadly as a normal one. It might have used smaller ammo though. I didn't get close enough to look. It was sort of shooting at me at the time. It was super cute though, with the 2 little mini guns on each side. I'm sure you could have a battle saddle with just one of them. It would definitely be lighter, so happy hunting if you want one. Another big gun that pops up every once in a while is a flamethrower. Some of them were also called incinerators or napalmers. These are mostly only minor differences though, like one shoots balls of fire while the other shoots a stream of it. They'll basically do the same thing, burn stuff. These can actually be very useful, because they can also be a great tool for starting campfires or burning garbage that you don't want in your settlement. They can also use the hot end of the nozzle to seal up any wounds that you can't stop bleeding. As far as big guns go, they are something very great to have, and they are great for making a big group of enemies scatter. Once you're on fire, you kind of forget about whatever else you were doing and try to stop being on fire. That can give you a chance to escape while your enemies are busy with the burning. Many of these big guns can also be placed on tripod mounts. So you set them up on the edge of your settlement and only use them when you need them. This can be really useful if you have some kind of walls around your village or only one door. When you have a guard on the tower next to the door with a big gun right in front of her, it will be much easier to protect your home that way. The hardest thing about weapons like this is actually finding the things. Like I mentioned in the normal guns chapter, these are not things you'll find stashed in the average house or office building. However, you could get lucky and find something. It's been a long time since the war, and ponies have moved stuff around quite a bit since then. Your best bet is to look around old military stuff, or pull it off of an enemy you somehow defeated. Some different stores and caravan traders might have a big gun or two. I usually have a few in stock here at absolutely everything, but that really all depends. If you do get your hooves on one, be very mindful how much ammo you have and what you want to use the gun for. You don't know when you'll come across another box of missiles or minigun ammo belts or flamethrower fuel. If you're really lucky, you might stumble on a balefire egg launcher. I call it a BEL for short. If you know a little bit about history, balefire bombs are what were used to destroy the world at the end of the Great War. Most ponies only think of them as really massive tubes that were about the size of a manticore. The difference is that those really big tubes were generally called megaspells. They could magically amplify all sorts of great or terrible things. So, as it happens that many of them had these things called balefire eggs inside of them. These balefire eggs were enchanted gems that usually glowed bright green. Once the spell was triggered, they would leave dust from the original gem all over the place. Even though an egg was only the size of a pony's head, once they exploded, they ended up tinier than sand. These little bits of dust were still enchanted. The balefire radiation they gave off does all sorts of things, mostly bad. But in the case of some ghouls like me, we were also kept alive somehow because of it. So, I guess I can't complain too much. Anyway, not every balefire egg was put inside of some kind of mega spell bomb. Many of them could be placed directly into these big tubes that shot out like a grenade launcher. You want to be very far away from them when they do go off though, because the explosion is pretty big and that area becomes super radioactive for a while. The equestrian army used these bells as an area denial weapon. That means if the zebras did really well in one particular battle, the army would launch a few balefire eggs into the area so that you couldn't stay there or do anything with it. It worked really well, but the zebras had balefire eggs too, so basically the same thing happened on both sides. But you know what they say, all's fair in love and war. So give your special son pony a kiss and nuke some raiders.